Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, Cooking for the Family. I'm Devon and today I'm going to share with you how to make these delicious sweet potato pie cookies. When I talk about delicious, these cookies are it. These are the ingredients that we are going to be using for our cookies. Of course, some fresh sweet potatoes that we will be boiling, some pecans, you gotta have the pecans. Put some pecans in here, some cinnamon, some ginger, vanilla, those warm spices of the nutmeg. Oh, we got some allspice going on in here. This is going to be so good. I cannot wait to share this with you. So what we're doing first here is I've gotten my sweet potato, and I had like about a medium-sized sweet potato that I have gone on and I've cut and I peeled and I boiled. Now after those sweet potatoes boiled and they are nice and soft, you see how nice and soft our sweet potatoes are? So our sweet potatoes are nice and soft. We want to go on and make a little puree with them, okay? And so you see what I'm doing here with my fork? I'm just kind of breaking up the chunks. Now with our sweet potatoes, we will be using 1 cup of sweet potato puree or sweet potato mash. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of breaking up some of these big chunks here. Now also guys, if you want to, if you don't have access, you don't have any sweet potatoes, which is actually the yams. These are yams. And so if you don't have any of these yams, also known as sweet potatoes, what you can do is you can use the canned version. All right, you can use the canned version, and those are already tender to the fork. And you can use those and just kind of like boil them a little bit, just kind of really get them a little extra soft. And then you're going to go on and follow this next step here. So once I kind of have broken down some of those bigger chunks, I have my measuring cup here. And I'm going on and I'm putting enough in here to measure up to that cup of sweet potatoes that we need. Now, if you have a little bit more sweet potatoes than you need, you can always just put those to the side, put a little butter on it, some cinnamon, and just go on and eat that, yourself right on the side. However, with this measurement, if you have just a little bit more, so you can always even go up instead of just doing 1 cup. If you say, well, I got a little bit more of this sweet potato stuff, you can go on and do 1 1/4 cup. Okay, that's 1 1/4 cup. If you got a little bit more, it's not going to hurt the recipe. Now, in my mixing bowl here, I had my softened butter, and that was 1 stick of softened salted butter that I just put in my mixing bowl. And now I'm putting in my sugar. And actually what I'm doing is I'm putting in a 3/4 measure. So that was 3/4 of granulated sugar, and that was 3/4 of light brown sugar. Okay, so once I have that, I'm just going to go on and mix this in my bowl. And we want to kind of start to blend in that sugar and the butter all together before we add in our eggs. Okay, and so that next step in this, we only need 1 egg, and my egg was sitting on my counter at room temperature. So that's just 1 egg that I'm adding right there. Now to this, I'm going to go on and add in my vanilla. And I'm adding in my vanilla, and our vanilla, we're only going to be using 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and that's pure vanilla extract that we're using, okay? And that vanilla really comes through with this cookie. And you see here, you see how my dough is looking? Just like that. And it's nice, and it's starting to whip together really good. And hey, you know what, guys? Comment down below and let me know, have you ever had a sweet potato pie cookie? They are so good. They're so delicious. And so I've turned my mixer back on here. And to my mixing bowl now, we're going to go on and add our other ingredients. And we have a lot of spices that we put in here because it just really makes that cookie come home. And so now we're adding our sweet potato puree. And like I said, if you don't have fresh sweet potatoes and you have canned sweet potatoes, just go on and boil them, drain the juice off, and put them in a little bit of water and just boil them, get them a little extra nice warm through and tender, and then that way they're easier to mash up if they're already warm versus taking them directly out the can, okay? And so I'm adding my puree there, and that is 1 cup of sweet potatoes, also known as yams, and so that's 1 cup of the sweet potatoes. Now once I've added that, I'm going to go on and turn my mixer on, just like that, and give it a nice mix. And I like to mix really well after each ingredient. It just makes sure that all of our ingredients really start to just marry together really good. And so we're mixing that up, and you see this is what it's looking like. And so far we just had that sugar in there, we've got our butter in there, our sweet potato puree that we made, okay, and we got our egg and our vanilla in there. And then you make sure that at the bottom of the bowl, how sometimes our ingredients can gather, we just want to make sure they're always going down there into the bottom of the bowl, making sure that everything stays nice and incorporated. I'm turning my mixer back on, and now what we're going to do is we're going to go on and start adding our other ingredients. Now our other ingredients are going to be our flour, our baking powder, our baking soda, our cinnamon. We're going to do our ginger, our allspice, and our nutmeg. Okay. Now this cookie here, we're using baking powder because our cookie is going to fluff up some. And although it's a cookie, it reminds me more of a tea cake, y'all. It reminds me more of a tea cake, just that consistency of it, because it is just so fluffy and soft. Now in that, and in the description box below, I'm going to have a list of all the ingredients you need to make these delicious sweet potato pie cookies. So we're using our salt, and that's just regular table salt that I'm using. But I used a half a teaspoon of baking powder. I used a half a teaspoon of baking soda. Okay. And so now what I like to do is I like to just go on just like that. Just like that, because most of the time when I make my cookies, I do not sift my flour. I just kind of take my fork through everything, and before I add my flour typically to my bowl. But with this cookie, it is important that you do want to sift your ingredients. So I do 2 siftings. The first sifting, as you saw, was with the baking powder, the soda, and the salt. Now I'm adding my spices. And so what I did was I added some allspice. And that was half a teaspoon of allspice. And then I also added my ginger. That's also half a teaspoon of ginger. You see that? That's my allspice right there. And so, like I said, I added my allspice, I added my ginger, and next we're going to add our nutmeg. And our nutmeg, we only need 1/4 a teaspoon of nutmeg, just a little bit. So we need 1/4 a teaspoon of nutmeg, and now my cinnamon. And we only need 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, just like that. As you see, I'm putting all the spices together right there in my strainer. So that way when I go, I'm just going to go on and I'm going to shake that real good. You see how I'm shaking that? So that way the spices and everything just blend in really nicely together. Just like that. And guys, this is part of my series of 12 days of cookies and holiday treats. And if you haven't checked out those videos, I will have them linked at the end of this one, as well as if you are new here, welcome. And if you're a returner, welcome back. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, what are you waiting for? Go on and hit that subscribe button. And if you like this recipe, be sure to give us a thumbs up. And if you think a family or friend would enjoy it, be sure to go on and hit that share button and share this video with them. So now with my dry ingredients, I'm going to slowly add them to my mixing bowl of my wet ingredients. And remember, that was the butter and the sugar and the egg and the vanilla. And so I'm just going to slowly add it just like that, a little bit at a time. And you really don't want to rush this step. You want to make sure that everything gets blended well, but you want to be mindful. You want to be mindful, guys, that you don't want to overmix. Okay, we don't want to overmix. So once I have it where it's mostly all mixed in, I'm going to go on and use my spatula now. And what we're going to do is, once I have that kind of, it's nice and mixed in the bowl, we're going to use our spatula to go on and finish up our mixing. And the reason why we do this, like I said, we don't want to overmix, but we also need to add in our pecans. And we're going to put in 1 cup of chopped pecans. Those are my pecans. So that's 1 cup of chopped pecans. Now, if you don't care for pecans, you can leave them out. Or if you say, you know what, you like walnuts instead, you can go on and substitute walnuts, some chopped walnuts. But the pecans that is such a tradition when it comes to sweet potato pie, to go on and have you some pecans. And so sometimes putting those pecans in there, oh, that little extra crunch in this cookie, fabulous. And so you see, this is how you want your batter to look. It's not going to be super stiff, okay? It's going to be a real sticky batter, because when these cookies bake up, it will put you in a mind of more like a little tea cake. And because of that, they are so easy to eat with your coffee and with your tea. And they are so great if you're going to have a brunch, if you're going to have a Christmas brunch or a New Year's brunch. And you just pair that with some scrambled eggs and some fresh fruit and your breakfast meat. Oh, it's just delicious. Now this, we've gone on and I've covered it with some plastic wrap, and we're going to refrigerate our dough for 2 hours. Now our dough has refrigerated for 2 hours, y'all, and now it's time for us to go on and put together and make our sweet potato pie cookies. And you see this is how your dough is going to look. It's not going to be super stiff, but we've gone on and it's not a dry dough either. It's more of a very moist dough. And so that's what keeps those cookies nice and tender and fluffy. As well as, remember, we put that baking powder in there. And so I'm going to be dropping these by a tablespoon. And so you just need a tablespoon because they don't spread a whole lot, but they're going to rise. They're going to get a little puffy. And so this recipe is going to make for you about 3 dozen to 3.5 dozen, depending on how big you do your cookies. But the size of a tablespoon with the pecans and everything, it's going to give you around 3 dozen cookies, okay? But the finishing touches, I'm going to show you how we're going to do a glaze to go on these cookies at the end, and it is just absolutely fabulous. And so as you see here, I'm going on, and like I said, see, this dough is a little sticky. And so you don't need to grease or flour your baking pan. I'm using my silicone cookie sheet, my silicone cookie mat that I love to use when I'm doing my cookies. And I'm just going on just like that. And you see how they're looking? You're not going to roll these into a ball or shape them perfectly. They're going to be like their own little special shapes here and there. But I'm just making sure that I have about a tablespoon and they're all about even. So that way they're going to bake all at the same time. I have my oven is preheating on 375 degrees, and our cookies are going to bake anywhere from 15 minutes up to 8 minutes, okay, on 375. But watch them because you do not want to overbake them. And these are our cookies. I've already taken the first batch out. I was working on the second batch, and you see how they're a nice color, just that beautiful sweet potato color right there. You've got the pecans all mixed in there. These cookies are just so yummy. They are so soft and tender, but we are not done. We are not done yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I make my glaze. And all we need is some powdered sugar, some vanilla, some water, and a little bit of cinnamon. And so to make my glaze, I use 1/2 cup of powdered sugar. And to that, I added in 1/4 teaspoon of some vanilla extract. And I'm just doing a few shakes of cinnamon. You just need a few shakes of cinnamon. And those few shakes of cinnamon was probably about 1/8 teaspoon. It's just a few shakes of cinnamon. Now to this, I'm just going to add a little bit of water. I'm looking for a particular consistency. And so I'm just adding a little bit of water. And then once I add my water, I'm just kind of mixing. You see, this is what you're looking for, because it's just going to be a little cinnamon vanilla drizzle for our sweet potato pie cookies. And so now I'm taking my cookie and I just go on and just use my measuring spoon I have there. And you see how I'm just drizzling? That's the consistency that you want your glaze to be. Just like that. Now, adding the glaze to our sweet potato pie cookies is optional. However, the glaze is so good on this cookie. That little extra cinnamon, that little touch of vanilla that this glaze gives to this cookie. You see that? You see how this is looking? You see that pecan just kind of poking through there? Oh my gosh, let's see what our cookie's looking like in the inside. You see, oh my goodness. You see this, y'all? Look at that soft, tender cookie. Do you see that right there in the middle? Oh my goodness. You see what I was talking about? About it's almost like a little tea cake. And it is just so soft, so moist, so delicious. Well, guys, that is it. This is our wonderful sweet potato pie cookie recipe. I hope you give this recipe a try. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you like this video, be sure to go on and give us a thumbs up and hit that share button and share this video with a friend or a family member. Well, I look forward to seeing you on the next one. And remember, it is always good when Devon is cooking for the family. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.